All righty. Thank you everyone for joining us. I am Patricia Garcia Nelson. We're joined this evening with the National Wildlife Federation as well as Geothermal Rising. And we're hoping to give you all some insight and some background for this upcoming rulemaking of this emerging technology. So very quickly, I am going to pause and I'm going to pass it on to Lynette, who is our interpreter.
Muchas gracias, Patricia. Thank you so much, Patricia. Thank you to the organizers of the space for making sure that everyone can connect and understand everything that is being shared today in the language of their hearts. Muchas gracias a todas las personas que están aquí, que organizaron este espacio para asegurarse que todos puedan entender el idioma de su corazón. Understanding that perhaps English and Spanish is not the heart language of everyone, right? And there is some other language, and some of us are here representing our native tongues that we perhaps have forgotten, but are still in our hearts. So I want to recognize and make time for that as well. También reconociendo las lenguas que se han perdido y que siguen con nosotros en nuestros corazones. Spanish is 15 to 20% times longer than English, so please be aware of your pace. I'm going to take my screen off because my video, because I sometimes talk with my hands, but if I jump back in here and I start doing this to y'all, this means that you're talking too fast, and I want to make sure that I capture every word by word that is being said, emotions, all of it. So please be aware of this sign here. Un recordatorio, amigues, el español es 15 a 20% veces más largo que el inglés, entonces voy a quitar mi video, pero mi pantalla, pero si en algún momento yo regreso y les hago así, eso significa que están hablando demasiado rápido. Yo quiero capturar cada palabra y cada emoción que se esté compartiendo por palabra y por palabra. Also, if there is any acronyms in the space, please make sure that you say them a couple of times, that you define them. We want to make sure that everyone is understanding what is being said. That's also making sure that we practice language justice, that acronyms are being defined. Asegúrense, por favor, también parte del ajuste de lenguaje es de que digan los acrónimos una o dos veces, los definan para asegurarse de que se puede interpretar correctamente. If you are not speaking, please make sure that you put yourself in mute so that it is, easier for us to hear everything that is being said without any background noise. Por favor, asegúrense de ponerse en silencio para que no haya ningún ruido en el fondo. I also want to make sure that if there's any questions or anything that is being said in English or in Spanish, that you do not switch between the languages between sentences. That can also be very confusing for folks. So make sure that if you are saying something in one language that you stick to that and then switch off after that sentence if needed. I want to respect everyone's understanding of what is being said, and I think that can help me as well, por favor. También asegúrense de no cambiar el idioma a media oración. Asegúrense de terminar una oración en un idioma y luego ya cambiarlo. Y con esto creo que es todo. And with this, I think this is all. Let's go ahead and check for interpretation and make sure that it's working for all of us. Thank you. Vamos a asegurar que esté trabajando la interpretación para todos. Vamos a aprenderlo. Interpretation on.
Okay, so sorry. So everyone should be able to have the interpretation feature. And now I'd like to pass it on to David to do a quick intro for NWF.
Thank you so much. My name is David DeGennaro. I'm a Senior Policy Specialist for Climate and Energy at the National Wildlife Federation. I work out of our Washington, D.C. office. I'm really happy to be here with you all this evening. We, in our Climate and Energy program, we work on a wide range of climate solutions, clean energy solutions. And that includes both natural climate solutions like forests and agriculture, but then also a lot of technological issues like clean energy production. And we're really excited to be here tonight to talk about next generation geothermal energy, because that's really the next frontier and really has a huge potential to get us where we need to go on our climate goals. I think we've seen great success thus far with wind and solar energy. Those have really scaled up and are really continuing to be deployed all around the country. But frankly, we're going to need more. Even if we plastered the landscape with as many solar panels and wind turbines as we could, our energy demands are just continuing to grow, and there's not enough space on the landscape for all of that. So geothermal really holds the promise to be a really firm, clean source of energy on a much smaller footprint. So that'll take up a lot less land. We'll have a lot fewer impacts to wildlife and to communities, and really be one of those win-win type solutions. And we're really happy to be talking with you today because as we go through this clean energy transition to a cleaner economy, we really want to make sure that it's also a just transition and that everybody's included, and that we're making sure that this new economy works for everybody. And so participation from all kinds of community groups and others is really a key to this process. And we're really glad that GreenLatinos has been such an active partner in this space. And we've worked with them on other things as well, and been, as I said, just a really great partner and really important to connect, people who are potentially impacted by these things on the ground with the information that they need and with the policymakers who are making these decisions to really make informed and correct decisions. So I think that's what we're hoping to get out of this, share a little bit of information, answer any questions, and help equip you all to continue to make progress in the state of Colorado. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, David. And now we're going to turn it over to Jason, who is going to give us an overview and the how of geothermal.
Thanks, Patricia. Hi, folks. My name is Jason Sorter. I am the Director of Policy and Community Engagement for Geothermal Rising. I've been on staff now for almost a year. I started at the end of the last September, and I've been working in clean energy policy issues for the past 15 years, primarily utility scale wind and solar development. I'm a third generation Coloradan. It's very near and dear to my heart. I've have a background in conservation work there as well. I've worked with groups like Colorado Trout Unlimited, Theodore Roosevelt Conservation Partnership, and Sierra Club on a variety of issues, including water policy, oil and gas development, and roadless rural implementation. So I'm excited to share with you all some of the various technologies that geothermal is in the midst of deploying. And Colorado is really at the forefront of this effort. It is a main priority of Governor Polis. He, as chair of the Western Governors Association, he drafted a Heat Beneath Our Feet report that essentially laid out a commercial game plan for geothermal deployment across the Western states. Additionally, over the course of the past few months, the Department of Energy has also released their geothermal deployment, geothermal liftoff report, which is a commercial roadmap for geothermal deployment and development across the United States as well. So I'm here tonight to just give you guys a brief overview. I've got a few slides to share with you, and happy to take some questions as they pertain to Colorado specifically and our current rulemaking process. I can tell you before we start this slideshow that Geothermal Rising has been involved with the Colorado Energy Office. We currently sit on a geothermal advisory board with the Colorado Energy Office, and we've been involved with the ECMC over the course of the past few months in terms of drafting the rules that were released to the public. So I will say that the ECMC initially had taken a lot of oil and gas development priorities over to the geothermal space, and they're not one-to-one, and the technologies are definitely not the same. So we brought in a variety of geothermal experts and worked with the ECMCU over the course of many months to draft some language that we think, ultimately will fit the best for geothermal development in the state of Colorado. I will tell you that geothermal development is very much in its infancy for next generation geothermal development. Currently, there's a pilot project in Utah, and there's some pilot projects in Europe, but it's very much a new frontier for the geothermal industry. So that being said, we're really trying to draft some rules that strike a balance between the needs of the community, the environment, and ultimately attracting developers into states like Colorado over the course of the next 10 years. So with that, I'll share just a brief slideshow with you here. Patricia, did you want to give me access to share my screen?
Okay, you should be good.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, this is a slideshow that we used a few months back for a geothermal heat pump workshop that both Geothermal Rising and the Colorado Energy Office hosted with the Colorado Pipe Fitters Union in Denver. And I'm only going to share the first 10 slides with you. I think those will give you kind of a decent overview of the industry. I will offer a disclaimer right now that I am by no means a geothermal technical expert. I'm not a geologist. I'm not a drilling expert by any means. But if you have some additional technical questions, please feel free to put those in the chat. And I will do my best to pass those on to our expert staff members, as well as our experts within our membership, and be sure to answer any additional questions you have that I'm unable to answer today. So let's go ahead and get started here. This is what the geothermal ecosystem looks like. There are essentially two types of generation, or excuse me, two types of geothermal technologies. There's low temp geothermal, which is primarily used for heating and cooling. And then there is high temp geothermal, which is utilized for power generation. And essentially you're utilizing the heat of the earth to power surface level turbines with either steam or hot water loops. So if you look at the actual temperature variations here, you'll see that within the realm of the 50 to 250 degree Fahrenheit range, you're really in that low temp area. And then you start moving into binary geothermal plants, which are next generation geothermal. That's the deep drilling operations that we're currently involved with the rulemaking for in the state of Colorado. And then at the higher temp are the flash and dry steam geothermal power plants. Those are traditional hydrothermal power plants. Those are mainly in operations in areas where there is, shale crust and a tremendous hydrothermal resource. Those are areas like Nevada and in Northern California. Yeah, one of the oldest geothermal plants in the world is the Geysers. It's near Calistoga, California, and it's been in operation since the 1950s. So that kind of gives you an overview of what the ecosystem looks like. Talk a little bit about Geothermal Rising as well. So Geothermal Rising is the oldest and largest geothermal membership organization in the world. We've been in operation since the 1970s and have had a number of different iterations. The prior iteration was the Geothermal Resources Council. It went through a rebranding effort a few years ago, and hence our new name, Geothermal Rising. We're here to promote all geothermal technologies and applications across the entire geothermal ecosystem. So that includes all the low temp geothermal heat pump operations, district heating, thermal energy networks, next generation geothermal applications, as well as hydrothermal applications. And our primary mission is to grow and empower the geothermal community. It's really to help get folks excited about geothermal and its potential as a clean energy source. And we're here to engage communities and familiarize the public about geothermal. I think what we've learned over the course of the past few years is, geothermal's been around for a long time, but there's not a lot of people have, a lot of information about geothermal and where it's headed, for next generation technologies. So my primary mission or my role within Geothermal Rising is to help shape policy at the federal, state, and tribal levels in North America. So I work with a team of policy experts. We have a state and local policy manager. Her name is Amelia Ledfin. I have a tribal engagement manager. Her name is Jessica Eagle Bluestone. She is based in North Dakota, and she's a member of the Mandan tribe. And her primary mission is to engage tribal communities across the United States and educate them about geothermal technologies as well. So I want to talk a little bit about the geothermal diversity and what it looks like. So, as I'd mentioned before, this is kind of an overview of what a geothermal technology looks like and how they operate and the different depths that these drilling applications go. So if you look at a traditional flash or binary power plant, they've got an injection well and our production well, and then an injection well. So essentially, these run in a concentric loop, and they power turbines within this power plant on the surface. So we'll talk a little bit about the merits of geothermal. It's a tremendous money saver, a cost saver in terms of power production. It's a now technology. It's been around for a number of years, and there are a lot of technologies that are being translated from the geologic community, the oil and gas community. And as I like to say, geothermal doesn't have a technology problem, we have a policy problem. And part of it is that it has just not been a policy priority for folks in Washington or in various states around the country to help get this process and this technology deployed. It utilizes oil and gas technology, which is actually a tremendous workforce transition opportunity. It provides a really good off-ramp for oil and gas workers over the course of the next 10 to 20 years. So as we transition off of hydrocarbons and fossil fuels, this will give oil and gas technologies and oil and gas workers an opportunity to move into that geothermal space with those skill sets. It's American and local. It utilizes American technologies. It utilizes American resources. Primarily the resources that go into a geothermal plant are steel and concrete, and it's domestic content that's readily available, and we're not reliant upon any foreign countries to import various resources to make this technology work. It creates jobs and more jobs per megawatt actually than solar and wind currently. Stable and reliable. It's a baseload power. So baseload power is different than an intermittent resource. So we are a baseload power which can be ramped up or ramped down on a continual basis or as needed. And we are not dependent upon, say, like what the solar and wind industry are, where the sun needs to shine or the wind needs to blow in order for it to operate properly. It's abundant and everywhere. So the earth is hot everywhere. The earth is a giant battery, and it's there for us, to tap into that potential. The reason that geothermal is prevalent in the Western United States is the crust is thin, and there are a tremendous amount of, readily available geothermal resources that can be easily identified geologically. But that being said, geothermal has the potential with next generation geothermal to be deployed across the entire United States. It's reliable and sustainable, and it has the smallest surface footprint of any power source out there. So that's a tremendous asset in terms of land use and impacts to wildlife and the environment, and various communities around the country. Construction operations, again, don't use rare earth materials. We're using basically steel and concrete to develop this technology. And it can be used for waste heat recovery through thermal energy networks, and can decarbonize building through heating and cooling opportunities as well. So we'll talk a little bit about
Jason,
the direct. Oh yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry. Are you also able to talk a little bit about the job placement program that you were telling us about how, I can't remember the name, but it's like an off-ramp for oil and gas workers to be able to transition into working with geothermal?
Yeah, so that's an ongoing thing, Patricia. That's happening, as we speak. There are a number of oil and gas, companies and workers who are transitioning or moving into the geothermal space. So there are major hydrocarbon developers out there that are actually, building, geothermal divisions within their own organizations. And there's a tremendous amount of folks that are focused or concentrated on building out their geothermal resources across the United States. So with that being said, Geothermal Rising is partnered with two other organizations, and we are the recipients of a $165 million Department of Energy grant called the GEOD grant, which will be launching in mid-September. And that is a tremendous opportunity for us to administer resources to the geothermal industry and help it get on its feet. So I'll talk a little bit about the direct use applications, and these are low temp applications, which can be used for breweries, fruit and vegetable dehydration, aquaculture, greenhouses, food and paper and plastic processing, and district heating networks. Mesa College on the western slope actually has a thermal energy network and gets all of its heating and cooling from the earth. And then there are new areas for expansion of geothermal. So they're actually extracting mineral enriched fluids from the saline geothermal brines. So in the Salton Sea area, there are a number of pilot projects to actually extract lithium resources from those geothermal brines. And there are a number of companies that are using geothermal to help power and provide carbon capture, sequestration, and hydrogen production efforts as well. So what is geothermal lacking? So geothermal is lacking a policy framework that takes into account the unique characteristics of geothermal energy. And society has made social and policy decisions that support one technology over another, and it results in technological lock-in. And this leads to dependency down a particular socially created path. So what that means is currently we're involved in a number of efforts across the US at the state and local levels, and we're involved in a number of efforts at the federal level to help build out a policy framework for geothermal to be deployed nationwide. So what does that include? So currently we're working with the National Wildlife Federation as part of a working group in Washington, D.C. to add additional appropriations to the Department of Energy's Geothermal Technology Office, the Loans Programs Office, and the Office of Clean Energy Development, as well as the U.S. Geologic Survey, and provide them with additional appropriations resources. We're also involved in permitting efforts to streamline permitting and to provide additional risk mitigation in the exploratory phases for companies as they're involved in these efforts. So there are a number of bills that are moving on Capitol Hill right now, both on the House and the Senate side. And then we're working with a number of agencies, and Geothermal Rising works very closely with the Department of Energy and the Geothermal Technologies Office to get this technology deployed as quickly as possible. So here are the policy solutions that I just referred to. Risk mitigation, which are lower upfront exploration costs. It's budget neutral, so it's essentially the industry puts this money into a fund that's managed by the federal government, in order to explore or to drill exploratory wells and tap into geothermal resources around the country. Again, we're looking for permitting reform, which provides categorical exclusions on the exploratory side for geothermal developers, geothermal lease sales, and then we're looking to augment, BLM staffing and provide the Bureau of Land Management with additional staffing resources. We're also involved in tax reform, and there are a number of Inflation Reduction Act tax credits that geothermal developers can take advantage of. So, we're involved in terms of providing comments to the Department of Treasury as they issue their IRS guidance for the IRA implementation process. So let's talk a little bit about Colorado. Colorado has tremendous geothermal resources, as you can see from the map here below. There are hot springs and young fault zones, quaternary volcanism. I don't know if I'm saying that right, because I'm not a geologist here. Sedimentary basins in eastern Colorado, Rocky Mountain uplift in western Colorado, Rio Grande Rift Zone in south central Colorado. And there's a really good temperature range for geothermal development across Colorado. There are companies out there that are actually looking at the potential of developing geothermal resources in existing oil and gas wells. And, what that requires is, for them to go in and actually re-drill those boreholes to a wider diameter and retrofit those casings. And then they run, solid piping through those casings. So there are a few companies that are looking into those technologies right now, but are also very much in their infancy as well. So that's pretty much my overview. I'm not going to share with you the remainder slides because those go into quite a bit of technical information with regard to heating and cooling. But I'll stop sharing my slide deck here now, and happy to take any questions and talk to you all about any concerns you have or the rulemaking process in general and our involvement with that process.
Yeah, so it looks like we have a question in the chat from Jan Rose. Can you address contamination of saline aquifers used for geothermal by oil and gas produced water injection?
Contamination of saline aquifers. So I can tell you that, the aquifers that are tapped into by geothermal resources are not moving through a hydrocarbon resource. So I mean, I'm not a technical expert, but I can tell you that, we are not we're not in the business of contaminating saline aquifers. Saline aquifers are much different, and they're at a much deeper depth than a drinking water aquifer. And the water that geothermal industry is utilizing are coming from those geothermal aquifers. So we very much need that water. We very much use that water. We are not re-injecting that water into the aquifer or into the rock formations, which is what traditional oil and gas developers have done in the past, and it's what causes induced seismicity issues. But geothermal operators actually need to utilize that water to run that fluid to power those turbines on the surface.
I have a question. Could you
Sure.
talk to us about risks involved with adapting previously drilled wells?
I can't go much more into the technology for that, but I'm happy to pass that on. And I can tell you that there is an operator that's based in Colorado, Gradient Geothermal, and that is their primary charge, is to potentially utilize existing oil and gas wells, which, is a tremendous opportunity to actually go in and actually clean up some of these abandoned oil and gas wells. So I think that's why they're looking to, potentially utilize some of these existing oil and gas resources across the U.S.
And then we had another question in the chat. A lot of our environmental groups and allies are very concerned about the ECMC rules not doing enough to address possible emissions or impacts to community. Is geothermal rising in discussion with or willing to enter discussions with groups regarding these concerns?
Absolutely. I mean, we are more than happy to have, discussions and dispel, any misinformation about geothermal development. I can tell you that we are not tapping into existing methane beds. So we're not extracting a hydrocarbon resource from these rock formations. Geothermal is much different than an oil and gas operation in the sense that we are not looking to extract a hydrocarbon resource and put it on a spot market. You need stable rock formations, and you do not want a rock formation that has a hydrocarbon resource available. And so, it's a completely different process in that regard.
Alrighty, do we have any other questions before moving on? If you have any questions that come up after the Zoom, please send them over to us and we will definitely get you in contact with Jason or see if we're able to help you answer that question. And so what we'd like to do now is continue with the rest of our presentation. And so let's start the slideshow. And we also just want to quickly mention that we're very excited to bring experts in our to our community and present their insights. Their views may not fully represent our own. Thank you, Jason, so much for bringing it possible for me to share the slide deck with everyone. The second half of the slide deck has information about the other type of geothermal that would be used more for residential and direct use. And so I'd like to continue moving on to the second half where we'll talk about testimony. And so at GreenLatinos, we're very passionate about bringing our community members and bringing them to have a seat at the table. And so it's super important that when you're bringing your knowledge to the table, you recognize that this is your opportunity to share your story. You don't necessarily have to be an expert, and your lived experience is very important. There are now several ways to participate at state level rulemakings, whether they're in person, virtually, or you can send your comments in writing. Typically, when we talk about a hearing, what does that look like? I feel that a lot of the times people are intimidating because they don't know what it's like or what they're supposed to do, right? And so we like to lay it all out there for you. So during the hearing, if it's in person, you'll stay in line, or if it's virtually, you'll just stay on the Zoom. If you're attending a virtual hearing, make sure you're logged into the correct platform. Most of the time, we use Zoom, but sometimes we might use Google Meets or something like that to make sure that you have the appropriate platform. And when it's your time to speak, you'll be made into a panelist if it's a webinar. And once your name is called, just like everything else, take a deep breath. If you're nervous, just remember that you are doing some amazing work. And most of the time, a lot of the hearings will now have interpretation services available, and that way you're able to make your comments in your preferred language. And so when it comes to writing our comments, what do we write about, right? And so one thing that you need to remember is that you're not alone. There are many organizations like ours that will prepare toolkits with background information and everything you need to know. And we will also include examples of a testimony. And a few tips that we have is that you're going to want to have your testimony prepared in advance. I know some people don't necessarily like to write things out, but having your main talking points so you say everything you want to say, because you will only have 2 to 4 minutes, and that's only a few hundred words. So you have to make it count, right? When we're creating our public comment, we have created a little outline for y'all to use. And it's really, really simple because, like I said, you don't have a lot of time. So generally, you'll want to introduce yourself. Are you for or against a proposal? What are your concerns? Are there changes you want to see? And most importantly, you want to share your experience. How is this going to impact you? How is this going to impact your family? Do you have concerns that you would like to see addressed? Anything like that? That is going to be the best little formula for your public comment. And so I have here a very simple outline. And so you want to introduce yourself. My name is Patricia Garcia Nelson. I'm from Greeley. Are you in favor or against the proposed rules in this case? I'm in favor of rules that protect our community from pollution and disruption of our environment. Please tell us about your personal experience. How has your family, your neighbors, or yourself been impacted? I live in a community where we are impacted by pollution from oil and gas industry and other industries. I'm deeply concerned that this emerging technology is being exempted from community protections that we have already spent years fighting for. And so, what are your concerns, complaints, or changes you want to see? The commission has been mandated by multiple pieces of legislation and the governor's administration to prioritize communities' public health, welfare, and especially communities that have been historically and systematically harmed. Now, because this is a Zoom and we are limited on space, this is a very, very bare bones testimony, but this could, simply be enough. We are addressing how we're impacted. In addition to that, we're seeing what we want the rules to address. So we want to make sure that emerging technologies are not exempt from community protections. And as well, we're supporting that by bringing up, the multiple pieces of legislation and directives from the governor's administration. This next slide is the same, but it's our translated version. We can also send this presentation out to everyone. And so I want to pause for, is there anybody that has any questions about how to create their public comments? No questions. I don't see any raised hands. Okay, so we're good to go. We'll have some information here that I can also send these dates afterwards. So what's coming up are the last few steps of this rulemaking. And so there was an extension issued by the ECMC, so the Energy and Carbon Management Commission, that extended the deadline for public comments on, it was changed from the 26th of July to August 1st. And so that is super important to sign up if you'd like to speak. And so we'll have the hearing next week, the 5th, the 6th, and the 8th. And I wanted to make a little map for everyone on how to find this, because the website used is not necessarily the easiest to navigate. So first we'll go to the ECMC website. You'll want to click on regulations. From there, you will click on rules. And then once you click on rules, you'll want to click on rulemaking information. And so this will list all of the current and upcoming rulemakings at the ECMC. And so once you click on deep geothermal, you'll want to go to the deep geothermal rulemaking documents. This is where you need to go to find the Google form to sign up to speak. I will also be providing you with the links because like I said, it's a little difficult to navigate sometimes. And we want to definitely make it as easy as we possibly can. Um, and that way you're able to share this with other people, you know, and we'll have, like I said, we'll have everything ready for us to use here. um, and so let me see. It looks a couple of hands up. Leslie, you can go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hi, Leslie Glustrom here, and I super appreciate Green Latinos, and it's been helpful. So thanks to Jason. I am just really concerned because 350 Colorado, which I have a lot of respect for, has taken a hard look at these rules, and they have some very serious concerns. So I'm just hoping that, and those concerns weren't represented today. So if people are going to make comments, I'll forward the 350 email to Ian, and then he can forward it to others. But I just want to make sure that yes, there's a reason to do geothermal, but we need to do it correctly and respectfully. The ECMC does not have a great track record, as I think most people on this call know. So just want to underscore that there are some pretty serious concerns about the rules as they are currently drafted.
Absolutely, Leslie. And we definitely share a lot of the concerns. And that's why we tried to put together this webinar so that we're able to have an understanding of the technology. We'll also be sending out a toolkit with sample talking points and more information. I agree that there are a lot of concerning things in the draft rules. Like I said in my very simple sample statement, my biggest concerns are the exemption for community protections, and so those are some of the things that we'll be advocating for, and that we have been advocating for in this rulemaking. I really appreciate you bringing that up. Jan, would you like to unmute yourself?
Yeah, thanks, Patricia. I just wanted to point out that the link is also in the usual left column of the home page and indicates that you have to sign up by 2 p.m. on the 1st.
Right, thank you. I'm glad you brought that up, and I'm glad it's out there because the first time I was looking for it, I wasn't able to find it. And so that's why I wanted to create this little step-by-step how to find the links. Awesome. Thank you so much for bringing that up. Do we have any other questions? Oh, go ahead, Leslie.
No, I just wanted to thank you. Thank you so much, Patricia.
Awesome. Thank you all for joining. I am so sorry about the technical issues. I'm glad we were able to sort it out. And if you talk to anyone that signed up and didn't get the new Zoom link, let them know we'll be sending out the recording. We'll also be posting this on our YouTube channel. And like I said, once we have a toolkit ready to go, we will be sure to send those out as soon as possible. And of course, we'll also include talking points and messaging in Spanish. Alrighty, I'm going to end the recording if we don't have any other questions. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining.